All right, so welcome back to Morning Cafe. Time for the current affairs discussion. And of course, as promised earlier on, we're expecting to have Ruth Ambongo all the way, but we have decided to let go of her as we now incorporate a new guest, of course, able for that matter. We have Fred Asira, who's a political activist, he's an economist, he's a political analyst, and we also have Mesha Kodede, who's a political analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for finding time to join us this morning. And yes, we maintain the social distance as we get to discuss these issues. And I think I'll go straight to it, the aspect of the budget and the reactions of the gentlemen. Remember, we've talked about it in length in the morning as we were discussing the newspapers, but equally very much important, we get it on an economist, perspective. And Fred, I don't know whether you practice as much, but then again, when it comes to numbers, cracking the numbers, I think you're in a better position to take us through and tell us, was it a plus or a minus for you?
I would say it was generally a fair budget, so to speak, considering the fact that we are facing, we are in unique times, so to speak, because of the pandemic and such kind of things. And in the run-up to the reading of the budget, there are a number of stimulus plans and policies that the government has come up with to try and cushion Kenyans from the pandemic. So you find that the government is also hard-pressed to find a means of raising more revenue, so that they can also offer the basic services that they do. So whereas there is a lot of gives, and also the government was grappling with where do they also get this kind of finances. So generally the overview of the budget, it was a fair budget. But what usually comes to play after reading of the budget is the policy formulation to ensure that some of these fiscal plans that the government has proposed and intends to implement, that they are actually implemented. Because if you went to the streets after the reading of the budget, a lot of Kenyans were saying that we've had those kind of things before, but when it comes to the ground, as people say, things are different. So it's the policy that the government is going to use to follow up into the fiscal plans that it has that really matters.
All right, pretty much interesting. And speaking of the policies and speaking of the actions that we're supposed to take as at now, one then would argue, if at all the government is focused on ensuring that, yes, post-COVID-19, we're able to stay afloat, will they then push them to a point whereby they'll be forced to reopen the economy, Meshach?
Yes, I believe they will be forced to open the economy because it's a matter of balancing the fiscal measures and policy measures. And this will not happen so much if nothing is going on in terms of how economy usually move in the usual way. So at some point, we can say it cannot go for another month or more before the economy is fully open. Otherwise, at the end of the financial year, we might not be able to realize the implementation of the full budget as it should be.
All right, and a majority of members of parliament, of course, arguing that in a way this was centered towards, boosting much of the urban aspect or the urban centers as opposed to semi-arid areas, the rural areas. When we talk about this economically, Fred, what would it speak towards ensuring that, one, we revive the economy of the entire country, two, we're looking at the aspect of devolution, which is key. How best then again, if this is centered on the urban areas, how best or where does it place the aspect of devolution, counties making the best of reviving the economy?
Okay, I think the government tried because 369 billion has been allocated to counties. So based on the CRA allocations that we will find later, it will guide us which counties will get the lion's share of the amount that has been allocated by the government. But if you look at the budget, actually what the government was trying to do is boost the economic stimulus plan that the president had started working on prior to the reading of the budget. So we are looking at sectors of manufacturing, for example. that is the big four agenda, just to generalize everything, that has received, I think, 127 billion. So that we try to reopen the economy. It is sad to say that our economy largely lies on agriculture and manufacturing, so to speak.
Right.
So whereas the ASL areas might not have received as much, I think the focus of the government or in this particular budget is to ensure that we restart our economy after the lull moment that was caused by the pandemic.
And you've talked about something that is pretty much important on how best we can strengthen the manufacturing sector in the country. And amid ensuring that this works, the government or the Treasury also has pinched a bit on other key sectors, the digital sector and, the electronic sector, arguing that, they want to encourage, manufacturing from within. They want to encourage buy Kenya, build Kenya. What does it speak to the numerous of Kenyans who are relying or are depending highly on these sectors that have been affected?
Of course, it's a plus to them if now that the government is recognizing some of these very key areas of production. We have always relied on tourism and agriculture to a larger extent. So you find that most of our budget has always been allocated towards tourism, ignoring everybody else. Now that the government is bringing these other sectors into the bracket of our economy, it speaks volumes. And I think this has been informed by the pandemic, just to say again, because we realize that when it comes to manufacturing, the things that we have been importing, we did not have the leeway to import during the pandemic. And someone was saying, if you look at the developed countries, China, the US, and all those kind of countries, during the pandemic, those people were only exporting, say, ventilators and masks, the things that they do no longer need. They will provide for their economy first, their people first, so that only what they do not need goes out. And that whatever they did not need was very minimal. So we quickly realized that we have to strengthen our manufacturing, because some of these things we import, we can actually manufacture them locally. So it is a very good sign from the government to strengthen these other sectors of production in our country.
Which then would say that indeed it's a good thing, but what happens to the people who are in these sectors that are already affected, like this one? Wilson Mushiri says the introduction of the 1.5% tax on digital services will hurt businesses, especially those who buy and sell goods online. And also Joshua also arguing that, once you deny us the opportunity to proceed and export some of these electronic goods in the name of trying to make the best of the manufacturing industries within, I mean, at this point we'll be able to, we'll be thrown off balance. That's what he says. What do you make of this, and where does it place them? And don't you think that the government would have at least incorporated a proper way of ensuring that this is a success without hurting the few who are also dependent on, exports?
I
Imports,
think,
I
think this one, the government had to look at the balance and see, because in one way or the other, one person or two are going to get hurt, whichever way. So I think they are just looking at what are the numbers here and what are the numbers there. It's about balancing. And what if, I think this might have been the questions behind the government economists looking at what if these few who are already in hurt a little, and the other side opens job market for thousands or millions. What would that mean to our revenue collection and things like that? So I think that is basically what they might have been looking at.
Speaking of revenue,
if I may, you see the 1.5 digital tax has been informed by the realization that we have so many online platforms that generate resources from our country, but they do not pay any taxes. We do not, as Kenyans, get any benefit from it. So if you look at the Ubers, the online trading
markets,
stuff and all those kind of things, they are registered elsewhere. They tax elsewhere, but in Kenya we don't. But we use them here and they generate income here. So I think we might debate the amount, the 1.5,
yes,
but not whether or not it is right to have that kind of tax.
All right,
yes,
that's interesting. And speaking of which, then we know very well that if at all this budget is to be financed, of course, tax is key. Revenue that we collect within ourselves is pretty much key. How best we work on our economy is key. And also debt, in a way, has been used hugely towards ensuring that it services the budget that we have. So speaking of which, I would want to ask, what options does the government have as of now towards ensuring that they're able to service this budget measure?
The options are, as always, from what was read yesterday in the statement, I didn't see something unique that maybe Kenyans didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
Definitely, they are looking at collection of revenues. They are looking at borrowing further, as we also pay on this other end. So we are in a situation where we borrow to pay, or sometimes pay to borrow again. Those are the situations that are there. Yeah. And again, I think they are banking more on this stimulus package so that the economy can come back to a level where the small and medium SMEs could also be able to pay their tax as well. Right. Because most of the time you realize in our budgets for the past 3 or 4 years, we have been very ambitious, which is good, but most of the time we have not met the target of our revenue collection. So I had Honorable Kuri Atani talking about measures that are being put in place together with the KRA so that the tax base could be expanded to make us realize the target for revenue collection. Okay,
on surface value, Fred, as we look out on this particular issue of the budget, do you suppose then that the taxes that we'll collect, the taxes that have been proposed as at now, will come in handy towards ensuring that at least we are able to finance our very own budget? And worst of all, where does it place us in paying the debts that we have incurred, and also that aspect of us, having extra appetite for more debt?
I do not think we have the capacity to 100% finance the budget as it stands. First of all, our debt as a nation stands at a little bit above 5.5 trillion currently. Now, we owe our debtors in excess of $1 trillion as we speak. So, of the budget that has been read, we need to set aside $1 trillion to repay our debt. If you look at our recurrent expenditure itself, it currently stands at, I think, 1.3 trillion. Right. So we already have a shortfall. The government is projecting that KRA should at least raise 1.6, which has always been a tall order. Last year, I think we raised about 1.4, close to 5. So if you look at the circumstances that we are living in currently, raising 1.6 is a very tall order. So that generally means that for us to finance this budget, we are going to borrow largely. Where from? Is a big challenge, because domestically we cannot generate much. Kenyans are overtaxed. There's no any other tax that you can bring or introduce that is going to give you substantial amount. So I think we are in a catch-22 situation where we, like my friend says, we don't know whether we should pay to borrow to pay, or those kind of nitty-gritties. But largely, the budget will have to rely on borrowing.
All right. Well, sad note. And of course, education, winning big. Will this come in to address the disparities that we've witnessed, especially during this time of COVID-19, where we realize that, yes, indeed, our students, are worlds apart, and there's no way we can attain that equal and balance on matters education. Meshach, as we wind up on this.
Yeah, I realized that it was a very good proposal in the budget, especially on the stimulus package, where the Ministry of Education is going to hire more teachers. I think they said for a year or so. But my personal perspective would have been, because we've lost so much in education, especially the public schools, given the fact that international schools are going on and some private schools are actually on, the classes are happening digitally on Zoom and all the rest. There is a big disadvantage for children who are coming from homes where Zoom cannot happen or internet. At least I would want to say that was really very bad, because the president promised children the internet balloons. I don't know where you come from, the balloons were available or the internet was available. And it actually took us back politically to the beginning of Jubilee, when we were promised laptops again. So children will actually have issues with Uhuru, president, promising them things that don't come. But my point is, I think they should have put double of what they have proposed in the stimulus package for education, because it is actually targeting a bigger population which is in the public schools than private.
Okay, interesting. I wish we would have been able to get a hold of what the cartoon editions show on most of the dailies, but all the same, it's okay. It's a picture. I'll paint a picture of course, Ukur Yatani slicing bread and the hands of the poor, everyone, you know, every other sector, tattered clothes, you know, just extending their hands to him, you know, in trying to find out, I mean, what do we have? What's the share? And right behind him is a COVID-19, you know, sort of skeleton in the waiting. So we can only hope for the best, and we keep hope alive, because then, as Ukur Yatani had argued, I mean, we are even better off than other nations, and there are possibilities of us staying afloat if we remain disciplined. So let's cross over to a tribe or an ethnic group or a community that has been subject of ridicule or to ridicule, and that is the Luhya community. And actually someone here says, think twice before you start laughing at those tribal jokes. Well, while they might be interesting to laugh at, indeed, it's not a good ground in the Luhya community or the Mulembe nation. Fred.
The Luhya nation has been ridiculed. Unfortunately, the biggest culprits are Luhyas themselves. I was looking at one Boni Khalwale referring to other Luhyas as watchmen and chefs when he made a very disparaging tweet about 2 or so days ago. But this has always been with us. I don't know the reason why it has been perceived that Luhyas are lesser Kenyans, in so to speak. But I think if you look at the Mulembe nation as a nation itself, it's a nation that requires a person who can bring the Luhyaness back the way one Kijana wa Malwa had brought the Luhyaness. Was it really there? Was it really felt? Or maybe it's just a comparison where we're saying that it was on a fair ground? It was there, because I think Kijana wa Malwa was one person whom Kenyans would listen to. The Musinde Muliros of yesteryears were people who commanded some voice. Now, you find that Luhyas of today have allowed comedians and persons who lack charisma and intellect to be their spokespeople. People who have self-interest showing all over to be the people who are leading the Mulembe nation, thus leaving the Mulembe nation to be a populace that is ridiculed by everyone, because they do not make firm decisions that can help their community. And I think that should change going forth. All right, Meshach Odede, what do you make of this, especially when Fred says that at least we had the, I mean, one person who was able to bring that Luhya unity, you know, and Kijana wa Malwa is this person that he refers to. But the best the Luhya community could acquire or could take as of now was only the VP position. And even as we're debating on this, I mean, the clear picture here is the aspect of politics. Let's not run away from that. I mean, at what point will they be able to come together and front their own candidate
to the top position of the country?
If you ask me, there are two things that I've come to realize with Luhyas who we call mashemeji, or from our end.
From your end,
yeah,
right?
They are always mashemeji.
Yeah.
But two things are very clear. The leaders of Luhya Nation of today are quite very different from the leaders of Luhya Nation in the years that we were very young or before we were born.
All right.
The Masinde Muliros coming all the way to the time of Kijana Wamalwa had a vision which I could say is very different from the vision that the Luhya Nation have today. And one thing is happening in politics around Africa or Kenya specifically. Politics is still based on interest, and if you go further, it is on numbers. You win on numbers. So the narrative that came in the few years that we have seen behind us was a very false narrative that Luhya Nation is very democratic, and so anybody is voted from anywhere, anyhow, and that makes them, but that has worked against them now.
Right.
Because when you go to the national table, you put your numbers on the table. And that is what has worked against people like Honorable Wetangula, Musalia, and a few others who are currently seen as Luhya leaders.
Yeah.
Because Musalia will put a small number on the table, Wetangula puts a small number on the table, Eugene puts a small number on the table. My friend Boni is also running with a certain number towards another end. Baba is also in Luhya land. He calls himself a Luhya.
And we say bare knuckles this time around. The Luhya said that they are going to say no to Baba. Will it cost him?
But Baba has always been one of them.
All right.
more Luhya than Luo.
And everything. So you say, Fred, that this cannot happen?
So this has not worked for them.
Okay.
I think one thing has come out. No Luhya leader living in today current politics allows themselves to be led.
Right.
I think it is high time some of them say, I agree, I accept to be led.
Right.
Not because of what happens in other tribes, but because we want something good for us together. So maybe if it is Eugene, Honorable Eugene, lead us today. If it is Musalia, lead us today, we accept. But other leaders will not accept.
All right. Are the numerous sub-tribes what is key towards, one, of course, ensuring that Luhyas are not in the best of state in terms of unity? Or is it the key thing that is actually bedeviling them, Fred?
I think it's the numerous sub-tribes. And like my friend has said, you see, first of all, I will say this, that our politics, national as we may want to term it, is highly ethnic.
Yeah.
It's basically ethnic.
Yeah.
So you have, as a leader, to rally your ethnic tribe behind you, so that you have the push to go forward to claim national leadership. If your foot soldiers behind do not support you or give you the numbers, then you do not have the bargaining power.
Right.
Now, fast forward to Luhyas. Every sub-tribe believes they are a tribe or an ethnic grouping by themselves. That's why you will find that Weta has his ethnic sub-tribe backing him up. So is Musalia from his Vihiga. And that's why even ANC is entirely Vihiga.
Right.
From the leader, chairman, what. So you find that they have segregated themselves in that manner.
Right.
So bringing Luhyas together does not require a person who has ethnic backing. That's a unique thing about the Luhyas.
All right.
Luhyas will need a charismatic leader.
Okay.
Someone who transcends the ethnicity.
And you do not see that in Musalia Mudavadi, you do not see that in Moses
Musalia Mudavadi, I've just given you an
Obalwa.
example of Musalia Mudavadi's ANC.
Okay.
It goes back to his hometown, Vihiga.
All right, so he's not the best one.
So it requires a person who can speak. If you look at Kijana Wamalwa.
Can we pinpoint one who would be charismatic? You're talking about Kijana Wamalwa. If you look at some of the parties, the key parties right here in the country, that is actually what happens. Of course, you go to ODM.
ODM is national, my friend.
Oh, yeah, is it?
Why are you drawing ODM into such kind of... Yes, you are national. Our SG is Luhya.
All right. ANC is not.
Yeah.
ANC gave back to NASA. NASA. I mean, last time I checked.
We are not talking about being brought on board.
Okay.
We brought them on board, and now they are. But ODM is a national party.
You realize some of them came through ANC and became ODM, like Honorable Malala and Soti.
Exactly, they realized
they came through that NASA song.
So as I was, that's a polite way of saying that ODM is ODM.
As I was finishing,
I think I'm dealing with ODM.
No. I'm just being honest with you. As I was telling you, so that is why you will find that Weta, Musalia Mudavadi, Eugene, Mzee Atuoli, all of them have been unable to bring Luhyas together. But you'll be surprised to find that Baba walks into that backyard and brings them together.
Oh yeah.
You'll be surprised to find that there's a larger chunk of Luhyas who are listening to the deputy president. Because these are people who are charismatic. They can sell an agenda. They can rally troops and bring them closer to them. So that is what Luhyas need. They must identify a son of soil who is charismatic and can rally troops behind them.
Oparanya is in ODM, all right. Well, I don't know.
Oparanya has the capacity, actually.
Oparanya has the capacity?
If he just lacks the charisma.
All right.
Yeah.
Just because he's in ODM?
No. Actually, he's done a lot of work that has been seen. But I've told you, he lacks the charisma. If he was a charismatic person.
As Malala.
Wouldn't you have argued the same? Wouldn't you have argued the same when Mudavadi and the likes of Weta were working together with Baba?
I wouldn't have. I've never argued.
Remember, it was a catch-22 on who was to be fronted.
Weta has always been a burden.
Weta
has always been a burden to the Luhya community. The sooner they realize that, the better. Because he's weak. He has no. He's just there. The only thing that is helping him is the number of years he's been in politics.
Let's overlook the charisma. Let's overlook the charisma and look at what the country would require for presidency. Don't you think the likes of Mudavadi would be good enough to balance this for the country?
Let me come in. Truth be told, Mudavadi is a very good leader and very much level-headed.
Right.
He only lacks, like Asira said, that charisma. But we have
with President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Of course, started the same way with no charisma, but has grown over time. So my problem with Honorable Musalia that he, at this point in time, he is not supposed to be in the league of those who lacks charisma after staying in politics since 1989. Musalia was in parliament when Baba was in jail, in custody of Moi. So he should have learned all this. By now, he is supposed to be in the league of those people who have learned. Uhuru started with Ndugu Zanguni and all the rest, which people didn't really like much. But today, Uhuru in the podium is not the same Uhuru of 2 or 2 campaigns.
So this is
Kenyans. Fellow Kenyans. It has come from Duguzanguni to fellow Kenyans, which is really good. So I think Musalia, when we get back, we put charisma aside, like you're saying, and we take the leader, one of the few leaders who we have in the country who can take this country forward. I would really say Honorable Musalia is supposed to be in each and every government, whether that government is headed by him or somebody else.
So when he's working with Baba, he's good enough. When he's working with, well, of course, other leaders, he's good enough. But
or when Baba is working with him.
So are you trying to say this? Okay, as we wind up on this. Mudavadi, Wetangula hang by thread, as a coup rock their parties, or the coups rock their parties. So are you trying to say that the fate that they're suffering today is justified? Fred?
I wanted to say that Musalia, as people may want to sell him, he's boneless. He's flaccid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he is unprincipled, and that is his undoing. And if he's listening, or if someone will send this to him, he should become principled. Decide what you want. Go for it.
He's decided at some point. He's gone to a point of, vying for presidency. Was that not a decision strong enough to tell you that?
There was a gentleman called Kalulu, who vied for president.
Yes.
There was another cartoon called Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who vied for president.
Cartoon? Someone who sat down and they crafted the constitution that we are using today?
He's a constitutional expert. He should stick to that. Not vying for presidency. You see, this kind of vying for presidency just so that you can prove a point does not make you a leader. Musalia Mudavadi is a leader, but he lacks key qualities of making it as a national leader, so to speak. So first thing he needs to do is to become principled. He needs to disassociate himself from the shadows that he keeps following. He follows Baba's shadows. If Baba is not with him, he jumps either to Ruto. If Ruto is not with him, he looks for Uhuru. Now we don't know he's going to look for who next. He should let people come to him because he has been there, and if he is able to package himself as someone who can make a decision and go with it, I'm sure he will find Kenyans who will follow him.
With all the charisma that Baba has, with all the charisma that the DP, Dr. William Ruto has, I mean, there are people who've argued that they can only be kingmakers and nothing beyond that. People have argued that the polite ones, the cool ones, can be the best president that you find.
I want to address them directly.
You have the capability of addressing that, and of course the chance to address them, because they're, I mean, critics, analysts, people who are governance experts. They've argued that they can only, people with so much charisma can only be kingmakers, and then we get the light, polite, the likes of Kibaki, to occupy the presidency.
There's a high chance of that being true.
Yeah.
Yes,
shortly. Before we come to measure, yes.
There's a high chance of that being true. And if you look at the life of Baba, from where he was to now, Baba is not the same. He's not the same person he used to be. He's not the 20. He's calm now.
Down. Okay.
Yeah, he's learned over time. And if you compare Baba now and the DP, the DP is Baba in 1990s. So that is why you find the so-called system, as people usually say, do not like this very vibrant, very radical kind of people.
Yes, in that case, so is it Mudavadi good enough? Are we going back to that argument?
No, what I said about Mudavadi is that he lacks the principles of being a leader. He is not principled. Being a national leader requires a person who can make a decision. You don't have to be very vibrant and showing all your strength about it. But if you are straight and you can say no, and your no is no, yes and your yes is yes, then people will start following you. If Baba says no today, it will be no. If Baba says it's handshake, whether
Baba
people even asked when we told him that this handshake is bad, he said it's good. You guys follow, and it has become good to some of us.
If you ask Mudavadi today, if you ask Wetangula today, if you ask Kalonzo Musyoka today, they will tell you that in a way, for a moment, Baba became watermelon. Meshach, wind up on this.
Let me tell you something. I have never known Baba as watermelon. That one.
I think I need to balance my set.
No, no, you don't have to. It is well balanced. Let me come from where we were on Musalia. I think one thing, like Asira have said, I would go further and say Musalia do not want to make tough decisions. A decision that looks risky. That is what Kenyan population want in a leader. You are one person who makes some very risky decisions, and everybody think this is death for us. And then you end up and you win, and then you have confidence of everyone who follows you.
You think Baba is going to win on this one? With these talks of maybe an Achezwa Mahali?
I think Baba have not said he's going for anything for now. No, he hasn't said.
Orengo has, and when you hear Orengo speak, then you know that Baba has spoken.
Sometimes people say so, but has never been proven scientifically. It is just what people think, that if Orengo speaks, Baba is speaking. But at some point, let me tell you, the reason why Baba is not trusted only in Luhya Nyanza, Baba is trusted even with the opponents. Even the opponent trust when Baba says, tomorrow we are not going to allow this to happen. The opponents begins to plan because they know Baba means that.
Well, interesting.
I don't know if Musalia would say, tomorrow we are not going to accept this, and the opponents begins to plan themselves. That is the farthest Musalia needs to go.
So all these NRM movements that were there, staged by NASA, were declared by Baba. They had nothing to do with the other principles.
I think
because they declared that, and yes, there are Kenyans who.
I think they had everything to do with all the people who were in that chamber.
Yes.
But then the others backed up last minute, so it remained all for Baba. That is how people win and some people lose. If they had, trust me, if Musalia, Kalonzo, and Wetangula were present at Uhuru Park during the so-called swearing in for Baba, there would be a different scenario of politics today. It would not be the same.
All right.
Completely.
Yeah. All right, Fred, yes or no? One, we saw the likes of Murathe speak. We saw the likes of, what do we call him? Francis Atwoli speak. And people argued, when you hear them speak, just know that President Uhuru Kenyatta has spoken. And of course, the argument was, no, it is not the case. But then we've seen what has culminated out of it. Is it true or not to say that when Orengo speaks, then Baba has spoken? Yes or no?
That cannot be a yes or no question, Linda.
Okay.
It's a question that needs to be answered. That there are instances where senior counsel speaks for Baba, and he comes clearly and he says it. And also senior counsel has his own head that and his own views that sometimes he shares that people misconstrue to be coming from Baba. Baba has a very large machinery of people, that a battalion. I think mostly, if you want to hear Baba speak, listen to the Secretary General of the party, ODM. Yes.
All right, okay, that's interesting. We can only wait to see. So that is Edwin Sifuna, for that matter. So let's cross over to Kirinyaga County, and Waiguru loses a bid to nullify impeachment. And of course, this proceeds to the Senate. We had that special sitting yesterday, and the Senate is set to address, or to, chart the way forward for Anne Waiguru. Meshach.
Yes.
I mean, is it political witch hunt, I should put it? Is she just, a person who has bad luck, or is it genuine that something is amiss?
You might want to imagine some years back, the Kirinyaga people themselves told us they want their thief.
Yes.
So that's what they are living with. But coming to the case, the MCAs or the people who are involved in the impeachment might have a real case.
Right.
We are not dismissing that case completely. They might have a real case. But I think there is politics that are also played a bit with the same case. And on the side of Waiguru, the governor, as well, there is politics that is happening. I think Waiguru knew very well what results she was going to get in court, but she was buying time as a political a strategy to give Senate time wajipange, especially Senate, which is also viewed largely as Kieleweke versus Tanga. So it was so fast, and it was happening in the middle of other things. So Waiguru could have been going to court simply to get some more time for Senate to plan themselves, because at the end of the day, she knew this thing is coming to the Senate. So the Senate could have time to mobilize and meet one another and discuss and agree on some things.
All right, speaking of the Senate, well, interesting, as Wambora, as Trump, as Zuma back then, when we could say that he has 9 lives. Fred, do you suppose that Anne Waiguru will be saved by the Senate? Will she survive this?
She will definitely survive the Senate.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the Senate is not going to view the charges that have been leveled against her. It's politics, as Meshach says. And it boils down to Kieleweke and Tanga. It's all about the battle of numbers. So if Waiguru goes, then the Tanga faction of Jubilee will claim victory, and their brothers in Kieleweke and brothers and sisters understand that. So they will not allow them, whether Waiguru murdered someone or not. It's not about what Waiguru. It's political powers gameplay. Now, back to the impeachment. I think people of Kirinyaga should save us the trouble and the drama. They do not deserve our pity. They do not deserve our time. They should live with Waiguru until she ends her term.
Because they elected her.
Yes, when we told them that Waiguru had been adversely mentioned in NYS 1, they actually say they wanted their thief, and they were comfortable with that. So unless they're impeaching her based on the issues of NYS 1 now, any other thing is a fallacy and a waste of time. Yes.
Wouldn't it be unfair for the likes of Waititu, who again face the same and of course are out as it stands right now?
My dear Linda, let's just be honest. There is no war against graft. It's political realignment.
All right.
So Waititu suffered the fate of aligning himself with Tanga Tanga. Yeah. He should have known better. Waiguru will highly be saved by the Senate
because she's aligned herself with the handshake and the BBI.
Not the handshake and BBI, because she is in Kieleweke, which has the numbers currently, right, and or has the machinery to bulldoze the numbers. Yes.
Is it, you know, the fact that she's aligned with the handshake and the BBI, Meshach, according to you, or it's true what, you know?
Linda, let me
Fred
tell you
says.
this. The case of Waititu might be different. The reason why I'm saying the case of Waititu might be different is because I followed it closely and knew at personal level those who are conducting most of these things. It actually largely originated from the people themselves.
All right.
And so the people approached the house, the parliament for Kiambu,
right,
and the MCAs picked it, and they worked with the people. I know at personal level, young people who went around Kiambu collecting signatures on the issues they have noted down.
But we've also witnessed demonstrations in Kirinyaga as of yesterday.
Demonstrations
and they are
are
calling
sponsored.
Are they?
Let me come to that.
Yes, usually.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just come to that. So these people had their issues they were tabling, and I have video clips of these young people making presentation in the Kiambu County Assembly. That is very different from when politicians have decided to impeach you and then masses are coming to demonstrate around that issue. Right. It is different when we are sitting in the parliament and the people out comes with issues and present before us. That is one. The presentation of the people of Kiambu to the house, the assembly of Kiambu, was based on the incompetence of Waititu. This one, we are not talking about the incompetence of Waiguru, we are talking about graft. And you know how the graft things usually end in Kenya. Right. So that's where I see the balance and the difference. Waititu was about incompetency, and so incompetency is very difficult to defend.
Right.
Unless you go extraordinary.
But graft is very easy to defend.
Graft is very easy to defend.
The systems that we have.
Very easy.
Sadly.
From whichever angle.
Of course, Benjamin Washiali equally saying that so much money should be channeled to, you know, EACC, that is, of course, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and also DCI and DPP towards ensuring that they're able to deal with graft. I can imagine how much has been channeled there already. Yeah. And Fred, you talk about Team Kieleweke, the factions of Tanga Tanga. They trickle down all the way to the county level. If you go to Kirinyaga, then you realize that a majority of the MCAs are probably Team Kieleweke. Then why? Team Tanga Tanga?
Yes.
Oh yeah, so do you suppose that could have informed this talk that is on ground right now?
Yes, if you look, there were pictorials of MCAs that were doing rounds, how they were marooned in
only two actually were in support of.
Yeah, they were marooned in some area so that they could not be influenced to impeach Waiguru. They could not be influenced not to impeach Waiguru. Right. So it actually informs what Meshach is saying, that this might have been a political sponsorship of someone, because it's the politicians who sat somewhere and decided that we think Waiguru has this is corrupt or something, or so to speak. Yeah. So it boils down to what you were saying, that it's a battle between the Jubilee factions of Kieleweke and Tanga Tanga.
But there is that aspect of Honorable Kibicho as well. They have had issues with Waiguru. And politically, Honorable Kibicho is not a man to fight right now. Okay. We have seen with Sonko, we have seen with other few governors.
Are you alleging that this could have informed that?
I'm not alleging. I know they have had issues.
They have had issues.
They have had issues. That's in public domain. That could probably have instigated this.
And his hand might not miss completely in the scenario. It might not be him sponsoring this whole thing, but his hand and opinion might be somewhere around this. And it is also possible that he is thinking of vying in the next election as a governor. And Waiguru is also very close to the presidency, as everybody knows.
Right.
So this might not be something that is planned to end in Waiguru ousted completely.
Right.
It might just be something that we are showing you that we can pull strings, even though you are close to my boss.
Okay.
Just know that you need to trade with us, all of us, carefully. It is not only you, we also have strings we can pull.
Wow.
That is a scenario that could be playing deep under.
Deep inside. Well, we can read so much into this, but we only have one option.
Just
and that is to wait for. Yes, just like?
Yeah, just like the scenario you saw with Mwosho Moja at Baba's office.
It's not Moja. Very many people have gone there to Baba's place. Maybe Waiguru needs to go there for a refill.
Waiguru has been
he's been there. She's been there.
I want
but
to disassociate myself from that conversation.
Okay, then we wind it at that particular
is how we can reform our police so that in the event that we need them in the future, because I've just been wondering, these kind of curfews and all those things were not politically instigated. What if we get to a point where it's political, you know, then the police will kill all of us, some of us. This was not a scenario where the police needed to use so much force and to address such kind of issues as breaking of the curfews and that. But all in all, we have tried because, as Mishaka said, you see, we have not reached some of the numbers that were projected from the beginning. So much has been done. And finally, on I think our government needs to address itself, sit down with itself, so that the executive and the judiciary can quit this fight. It is not healthy for a nation. We are headed in a wrong way if the government is split right in between the executive and the judiciary. They should sit down, the two presidents, Maraga and His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, with Baba by their side, because he has more wisdom, so they can discuss these things.
Okay, disclaimer. And as the Constitution dictates, it's important that the arms of government work together to complement each other. But what we see today is totally a different picture that is uncalled for. And like, of course, my panelists would argue, it is important that we have a truce addressed or a truce reached as soon as possible. Otherwise, Kenyans will be denied of justice, which is key. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Meshach Odede and Fred Asira, both political analysts, you know, also doing lots of activities on matters, economy and all that. And also Baba Diehard, so to speak. And thank you so much for your time. It was great having this conversation. And DJ JD254 on standby to entertain you. It's a Friday after all. So why don't we cross over to that side and have some enjoyment right there.